Hello everyone, welcome to V8 Online's live coverage of Thursday night IMSA. We're here for the second last time this season. Tonight we have round 11 coverage from the amazing Virginia International Raceway. Once again, Jay Kennedy and alongside me, Bo Albert. Bo, it's going to be a very, very entertaining night of racing. A little bit of a smaller field, but nonetheless, we have some of the best drivers in this race again tonight.
Yeah, we sure do, and we have one of the best tracks on the iRacing calendar too. Plenty of challenges around this VIR circuit. You've got long straights, tight hairpins, fast corners, which you cannot afford to miss the apex by a millimeter, or else you'll pay the consequences. Grass everywhere. It's an old school circuit, but we all love it.
Yeah, it's one of the most enjoyable circuits out there. The guys are currently in qualifying. Got about 3 minutes left to qualifying. A little bit smaller field than what we've seen. 41 drivers in total registered. The field split at 40. So we will have two separate races. One that we will cover, which is this one. Has 4 cars in the DP class, 5 cars in GTE, and 12 cars in GTE and 5 cars in GT3. A few drivers already finished their qualifying runs. At the moment, Lewis Gallon leading DP class, Zach Hanlon leading the GTE class. Marcian once again out in front, the T3 class, but that class, I think that's it. John Piesnick's just crossed the line. 4th. Very, very close in both the GT classes. GTE top 4 separated by 3/10. Separated by half a second. Rather close.
Yeah, it is. We might only have a small number of drivers in this field, but we have some of the best drivers this iRacing server has to offer. Just in the GTE field alone, in the GT3 field, we have a 5,000 combined I rating. So these guys are full of talent, and that's why we're seeing the time so close. About a tenth and a half separates your two leaders in your DP class, and we have another small margin in your GT3 class, and we can expect tight racing throughout the entire race, and I can't wait to watch it.
Got our only driver on a flying lap on screen at the moment, Cameron Dance, our colleague in the booth. He had other commitments last night, was off dirt racing last night, and he's jumped back into the DP after a pretty rough run last round at Interlagos, so good on him for getting back out there and having another crack.
Yeah, absolutely. He was doing very, very well at Interlagos, and unfortunately just had a bit of a miserable last 10 minutes, but he definitely knows how to drive on dirt. But tonight he's out for redemption on the tarmac, and he's looking like he's on a pretty good lap at the moment. He's currently last of the DPs, and unfortunately he's going to bail on that lap. But with only 4 cars in that class, he still has a fantastic shot at a podium.
It's going to be pretty interesting to see how all these classes unfold. Not long left in qualifying, only a couple of drivers actually out on the track at the moment. Marcian went back out there for another crack, even though he'd already posted the fastest time. Half a go, we will run through the starting grid right now because there's not much left to go in this field or in this session. Lewis Gallon will start from first, Carlo Labardi second, Clint Smith third, and Cameron Dance in fourth. That is the DP field. I'll take the GTE field tonight if you want. Sorry.
Yep, go for it.
All right, Zach Hanlon in first. Got Mark McDonald second, Tony Baird in third, Ivan Voloshin in fourth position, then Wayne Sanderson, Guy Leach, Martin Silvassi, Jake Blackhall, Braden Swain, Paul Mansell. I'm going to have no hope at that. Putra will be the surname. We'll go with that. And Christopher Norton rounding out that field. Interesting, though, the times at the back end of GTE very, very close to front of.
Yeah, and that can sometimes cause issues, but leading that class, as he's done quite a few times, is the incredibly talented Marcin Skreispak, leading way ahead of Blake Neck and Ryan O'Sullivan, the 2 ERT cars. Behind them, they have the incredibly talented John Piesnek, who is definitely someone to watch out for in this race. And behind him is Georgi Zarjon, who has even taken a few race wins in this IMSA category so far this season. So that GT3 field is full of really high potential drivers.
Interesting that Ross Rizzo's actually missed out on making this split tonight, and we've seen him very, very well in that GT class. Pretty disappointing for him not even to be in the top split tonight.
Yeah, he's definitely been the driver that has impressed us a lot in the GT3 category. He's definitely been a driver that's always been regarded to have a lot of potential, but in this series, it looks like he's really been able to unlock it and put in some great performances. I'm just hearing that unfortunately for Cam Dance, we saw him on that second lap and was looking pretty good, but unfortunately his fuel tank was not looking too good and had to bail on that lap with the tank looking on empty.
Can happen quite easily. That would put on one more car to join the Guy Leach, and then we'll be away for round 11. Next week will be the final round in this championship. I believe from memory we head to Imola.
It is indeed Imola. Definitely an interesting circuit, one I love, and I'm almost tempted to race that. Lots of opportunities to race hard there, clean and fast. But right now we have to turn our attention to VIR, which is a fantastic circuit, provides lots of racing, and we're not far away now as the cars head off on their pace lap to seeing if these cars can produce even more fantastic racing.
Could be another fantastic night. VIR always turns it on. It's been a very, very enjoyable track for us to broadcast throughout the years here at VIR. It's a line we've seen action aplenty here in every single series we've broadcast in the past. So really looking forward to this one tonight. It will be a fantastic night of racing. A little bit disappointing with the smaller field, but the action will surely for it. Drivers now making their way through the middle of the course, this fantastic course. Around about 5.5 k's in length.
Yeah, for those that actually watch the real life IMSA series, it's going to be a bit unique seeing these Corvette prototypes out on the VIR circuit. Those that watch IMSA know that this round of the IMSA Sports Car Championship is only GT cars only. And that's where we have our biggest field tonight. So we are almost representing the actual IMSA series with a huge GT grid. But it's going to be interesting to see how the Corvette prototypes do go because this is not a circuit that particularly suits them.
Now, especially coming up the hill through this section here, it'll be definitely flat for these guys up the hill here, but then coming around into the next section will be quite tough because of the undulation and the off-camber corner. Well, it'd be very, very easy for these guys to run wide through this corner here.
Yeah, very fast corner. And if you do run off there, of course, you run the risk of flying off the track so far and almost rejoining on the other side of the track and potentially hitting cars that are much further down the road from you. It's a very old school circuit, very much a club circuit with no walls and particularly closed and lots of grass runoff. So it's a very unique style of track, which I think is a lot of the reason why so many people do love it.
So it's a club circuit. That actually is two proper layouts then combined to be the big granddaddy layout, and then the outer layout which we're running here, which is called the full course. Drivers cut off right about here, or gone past the cutoff to go into the infield. Or just up over the rise here, there's cutoff into the field where it creates the south circuit. Pit complex, which the driver's already gone past. You'll hear barrier there. That's the north course rejoining or joining, and then section called roller coaster. Very, very fun part of the track, but these guys will want to make sure they got moves done before that point.
Yeah, it's a unique overtaking opportunity if you can do it, but no doubt these drivers will be brave enough to try it. And I can't wait to see how aggressive these prototypes get with each other. There's only 4 of them, so there's only a few spots to fight for, which means each one is even more important. Luis Paulo Gallen is going to be leading the field around the final corner, and he's just waiting for that green flag to plant the throttle, which is now, he launches 650 horsepower off the grid. And they're away, flashing headlights, almost potentially 3 wide further back in the Corvette field.
Wow, we're 4 wide down the front straight. There's big crash. Silvassi's clipped the wall at the start-finish line where they were 4 wide coming across the start-finish line in the Ferraris. Only 2 Ford GTs in the GTE field tonight. Down in that category, but they've made it through turn 1 in the end, but that was big. Silvassi, GT3 fields, file into single file, very, very smart. They will get through turn 1 nice and safely. Have a look at the middle of the pack here in the GTE field.
Yeah, I think GTE will be the field to watch tonight. Lots of drivers in that, highly competitive. And this is a circuit that suits these cars very, very well. So you're going to see lots of fighting throughout the field. You can see at the back there, Martin Silvassi struggling a little bit, and that's some big damage to that car. So don't be surprised if he pits at the end of this lap. And that's not going to be fun through these high-speed S's.
Got a Cut Price Racing replay of that. You could actually turned into the fence. I think it was from Aiden's Wayne, or get another angle of it. Wayne's just selected the back of Silvassi. And since we go back live, Labardi putting some pressure on Gallen at the front of EP field, but the front 3 in GTE well and truly on.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We've got Zachary Hanlon out front at the moment, has missed quite a few rounds, so he's not quite up to speed, particularly with these cars, as much as he would like. And equally so behind him is Mark McDonald, who I don't believe we've seen too much in a GTE car so far this season. So some new faces up the front of GTE that aren't always here every round. So that's good to see some new names popping up. And we look forward to a good fight between them, hopefully.
We will see pit stops once again, as we usually do. Ed Silvassi in the pit, so that's pretty much race done there for Bassi. Very, very tough to come back through. He'll have to make an extra pit stop because they are fuel limited, these cars in this series. So forced a pit stop in that aspect.
Yep, definitely. And these around this track in particular, we're using quite a bit more fuel than usually we see in these fields. Normally, we're only expecting to see about 20 liters in the car on the pit stops. Around here, it's going to be upwards of 30. So much longer pit stops. That's going to hurt Silvassi even more, and that's really, really a shame for him.
So much more open throttle here than we've seen at other tracks. Great, because it makes the racing a little bit more interesting with that extra strategy play. You'll see guys that'll be drafting to try and gain an advantage coming up to pit stop time.
Speaking of drafting, Carlo Labate is well and truly in the slipstream of Luis Paulo Gallen. Those two have absolutely left the rest of the Corvette prototypes for dust, and Labate is not going to let Gallen have an easy time of this. He's 4 tenths away at the moment, and in the slipstream, fuel saving constantly. He's got a good advantage here as Gallen still continues to slide his car around a little bit.
We saw the drafting and the fuel conservation mode really helped drivers last week at Interlagos. So once again, longer straights here, more on throttle time here. So that will definitely help the likes of Labate, also in some of the other fields as well. The GT3 field, John Peisnick, right on the tail of Ryan O'Sullivan as well. So he'll be saving a bit of fuel there too. He'd probably be happy just to sit behind O'Sullivan with that as it is at the moment.
Yeah, he will be, because it's a constant advantage. Even though you don't like to be staring at the back of another team's car, it's definitely an advantage just to be using as little fuel as you can. This Mercedes has a few engine maps as well, so maybe switch it down one and save as much as you can. But I don't think Peasnick is the kind of guy that wants to stick around too long. An incredibly fast driver. A lot of people struggle to stay onto the back of him, so don't be surprised if he starts getting quite racy very soon.
Mark McDonald's had an issue at Oak Tree, facing the wrong direction off in the grass. So we'll try and pick up the Cup Price Racing replay and see exactly what happened with him there. He's now dropped back to 4th position. Was in 2nd. Oh, he's just clipped the inside bit of grass coming up to the first section of Oak Tree, and good job to keep it out of the tyre barrier there.
Yeah, Oak Tree's a very hard corner. It's a double apex, as we're actually seeing a Jake Blackhall is around at the hairpin, and in trying to steer the car back on the track, he's parked it in the wall, and that is going to be the second ERT GTE car out of this race.
Disastrous start for the Ferraris from ERT tonight. Oh, there was actually a bit of contact between he and I think Christopher Norton. Bit of net code contact, and that helped Blackhall end up in the fence. So not a great night being an ERT Ferrari. Have a look at Mark McDonald try and make his way back up into the podium positions. He's right behind Wayne Sanderson right now.
Yep, those bright yellow headlights will be all through the mirror and the cockpit of Wayne Sanderson's Ferrari, and McDonald looks very, very racy. He was incredibly quick in the Porsche Carrera Cup Australia race around here, and he's definitely showing that this is a circuit that works well for him, because look at that through the S's right onto the gearbox, actually having to get out of the throttle to avoid getting into the back of Wayne Sanderson's rear bumper. But he's going to just stay behind into the Oak Tree corner, not anywhere near close enough, but into this next long straight, into this next section of track, he can get a big advantage and potentially think of a move.
Got to watch out for Ivan behind as well. He'll be potentially close enough to get some draft now. Actually, he's dropping off a little, so draft is helping McDonald here. He's going to have to get it done early though, because it's very, very tough to get a pass done here with the 2 different directions all under braking. Really is a single file section of track.
Yeah, you can occasionally make a move there, but it's quite risky. But I'm just looking at the front of GTE now, and Tony Baird is monstering the back of Zachary Hanlon. So yet another ERT Ferrari. It looks like it's beginning to suffer a little bit, as Baird, who was about a second behind in 3rd a few laps ago, benefited from McDonald's error, and now looks to gain the race lead.
Oh, big slide though from Baird. just as he was there to make a bit of pressure, ended up losing ground himself. Go back to that battle with McDonald. He's managed to get through under brakes into turn 1. Now resumed 3rd position in class.
Yep, looks like just a typical VIR maneuver, just using that slipstream all the way down that kinked front straight, pulling out of the last second and getting the move done using all the curb on the inside, and that's textbook stuff there from Mark McDonald. Running a Game of Thrones livery. If you do follow Game of Thrones, don't look at the car, because I can confirm there is a spoiler on the car. Badumts.
I don't watch it, so I'm safe. Someone tried to make me watch it once, and not for me. Have a look at the battle in the middle of the pack. When Blakeneck, John Peisnick's managed to get past Ryan O'Sullivan, and now hunting down Blakeneck in at the GT3 field for 2nd and 3rd at the moment.
Yeah, Peisnick's a very experienced driver when it comes to these GT3 cars, so I expect Blakeneck to come under a lot of pressure, but Blake is no stranger to these cars either, highly experienced, and being his teammate, I know him quite well, so I know he's a fighter, and he won't be wanting to give this position up for a second.
Pretty much all the drivers in the GT3 field, very, very accomplished, very, very skilled. Lucky in that aspect that we've got a pretty high-class field in GT3 tonight. It's just disappointing we've only got 5 cars.
Yeah, that's a shame, but that's more down to iRacing sorting out splits more than the actual popularity of this series, because we're only 1 driver away from having a full grid, and I'm sure there's some great racing in the other split as well, as Blakeneck running wide into turn 1 opens the door for John Peisnick, who has a slight overlap, but the next corner is going to be a left-hander, so Blake, who is blinking in and out a little bit, which has to be distracting John Peisnick, unfortunately has to back out of that. But Peisnick had a big opportunity there, but it looks like Blake's connection might have saved him a little bit.
Yeah, it would have been more distracting, and decided to get out of it rather than potentially put his car in a position where it would make contact with Blakeneck there. So good smart bit of driving from the very, very experienced Peisnick, who's just moving over a little bit to let Blake know he's there. Just a little lift off the throttle up through the S's. Jeez, this is a fun track.
Oh, it's a fantastic track, and to race with, it's incredibly awesome, because there's so many overtaking opportunities that you could potentially pull off, but sometimes are a bit risky, as we're seeing some contact between Peisnick and Sullivan. Sullivan doesn't like how Peisnick is treating his teammates, so he gives him a little bump to say, "Hi, I'm here too." And right now Peisnick's stuck in an ERT sandwich, and he'll definitely want to get it out of that sometime soon. As I'm just noticing, Carlo Labardi was very close to Gallon on the previous laps, but has now fallen away quite dramatically on that last lap.
He has, and just picking up another Cup Price Racing replay, something's happened to Mark McDonald as well, because he was in 3rd. He's now dropped back to 6th. He's just run wide at Roller Coaster by the looks. Dropped back a few positions coming up through Hogpen, back into the start of the front straight. 2nd last corner. Back into it now, back into line. He only lost out to Guy Leach in guys right there. But interesting just looking at Clint Smith. He's under pressure from Cameron Dance. And Cam doesn't do a lot of racing in these cars. And Smith, we have seen, does do a lot of racing in these cars. Smith obviously hasn't been overly comfortable with this car this week.
Yeah, it's a track that will suit some and not suit others, and right now it looks like it's working for Cam Dance, who is having quite an interesting night of racing, it would seem, because at 11 o'clock this morning Australian time, he was racing a Skip Barber at Oran Park, and now in a 650 horsepower prototype, maybe thinking about the inside of Clint Smith into turn 1 at VIR. So Cameron Dance, a man of all trades at the moment.
Last night, instead of joining us in the commentary box for our Formula Renault broadcast, he was racing in a teams event for the 410 sprint cars, which is very, very accomplished at as well. Picked up the 3rd position in the Australian Championship over the weekend. Team TTL picked up a 1-2-3 in that event.
Yeah, they had a fantastic night, and from what I've heard, it was quite dominating as well. As I'm just looking at Mark McDonald, who really wants to make his way through the pack again, thinks about a crossover on
Oh,
Baden Swain, gives him a little bump because he can't quite pull the move off, and he's going to have to hold single file because there is no overtaking opportunity unless you have an overlap into this section of track. So he'll stay behind for the next little bit, but he's looking very racy as also Ivan Voloshin continues to close in on the back of Wayne Sanderson.
go back to the front of DP. Have a look at how close Cameron Dance is now. He actually might get the move done.
It's a bit more than close now. Side by side into this section where we said it would be a bit tough to overtake, but Cameron Dance is dancing all over Clint Shane Smith and has got the move done and already beginning to pull away as Clint Shane Smith is now stuck with all that dirty air this Corvette does produce with the high amounts of aero. And Clint, who is leading the Division 2 IMSA Championship overall in the iRacing forums, is unfortunately not having a great night.
He's a little bit off the pace. His actual race pace is a second off the fastest lap of Labardi. That time around, he was 2.5 seconds off. His Dance makes a mistake, and they're going to go side by side, coming up through turns 2 and 3. NASCAR bend. Dance gets the position back.
Good racecraft between these two. Lots of respect there and some awesome racing as well. Oh, as with, who's that? That's Mark McDonald yet again thinking about around the outside of Baden Swan, who was defending valiantly. It's going to be a battle of who can break the latest, which is going to be Mark McDonald, but he still doesn't have the optimal line, but can he pull this off? He's gone around the outside. Doesn't matter now, even if he does have Swan get alongside him now, he's got the inside. That is job done for McDonald, and that was a fantastic overtake.
Yeah, great bit of driving there from McDonald to actually get that move done. Now resumes 5th position in class. Hanlon, Baird, Sanderson, Volshin. Volshin's closing up on Sanderson in 3rd, 4th position for the GTEs.
And with the pace we've seen from McDonald, don't be surprised if that fight for a P3 in class soon becomes a 3-car train.
I wouldn't be surprised in that at all, especially with pit stops not too far away as well. From memory, the pit window will open pretty much from now. It's from 30 minutes to 15 minutes left in the race that the guys can make it home on fuel. But as you said, there's a little bit more fuel burn this round, so we might see a little bit of a smaller window, which has its positives and negatives. Isaac's
One thing I have
got ahead of Blake Neck too, by the way. We've missed that.
Took the words out of my mouth. So Piestick now into P2, and with the pace he has in these GT3 cars, he has a 5-second haul to get onto the back of Marcin Skrypack, who has run away with that GT3 class so far.
Clint Smith still right on the tail of Cameron Dance. Last time around they did exactly the same lap time, but they're 2 seconds off the pace. Sorry, 3 seconds off the pace of the leaders in Gallen and Labardi. Gallen currently 2.8 second lead over Labardi.
Yep, Gallen is out front, as he has done so many times this season. But we're approaching that mid-phase of the race where we do occasionally see him fade back. He's been okay in the last few races, but especially in the early part of the season, we did see him begin to fall back into the clutches of the other Corvette prototypes. So we definitely won't call any race winners this early in the race. Still plenty to play for in every single class. As I'm actually noticing that Tony Baird, after that error he made at turn 1, is slowly beginning to creep onto the back of Zachary Hanlon again. It's still 2 seconds separating them, but progress being made.
Slowly but surely, you might just want to try and get it up into that draft. As soon as he's up in there, I think he'll gain very, very quickly. We're on board with Ivan Volshin. Right on the tail of Wayne Sanderson, but gap between McDonald and these two closed by about half a second in the first part of this lap.
Yeah, McDonald's had fantastic pace tonight. We don't see him in a Ferrari too often, but maybe we should, because he's shown a lot of potential in these cars, and if it wasn't for a few early mistakes in the race, potentially he could have had a look at Zachary Hanlon or Tony Baird for the higher positions, but we're seeing Wayne Sanderson and Ivan Voloshin getting a little bit racy into turn 15, still holding positions.
Drivers starting lap 11. We're not far away from the front cars in the DP class getting onto the back of our GT3 runners as well. Just out of curve.
So in that fight we had in DPs, it looks like Cam Dance has managed to pull away from Clint Shane Smith. So that little fight might have unmaterialized for a little bit, but Cam Dance doesn't do too many of these races in the Corvette, so we'll see if his tyres can hold up as well as Clint's do. So we'll still keep an eye on that, see if it forms up once again. But this battle for third and further back in GTE still rages on.
A full second quicker last time around was Mark McDonald. Baden Swain, who's behind McDonald, he was also about 7/10 quicker. Interesting, I'm just noticing Labardi into the pit, so he's the first to jump as we approach. We're about 4 minutes away from the halfway point in this race, so he's going to try and undercut Lewis Gallon before they get into traffic, which isn't a bad play.
Yeah, no, the undercut is very, very powerful, especially at a circuit like here, which has a lot of long corners, slow corners. The undercut will be quite powerful, so also getting out of the way of traffic, he'll hopefully gain quite a fair bit and maybe make some inroads on Gallon. And another person hoping to do that is Georgi Jarjon in the GT3 class, who we've seen so many times win this race on strategy. So he'll be hoping to move his way from last in that GT3 class. But Mark McDonald, what kind of pace does he have in this Ferrari tonight?
Absolutely on it. Yeah, getting out of the way is Ivan Volkan. Interesting strategy-wise, just thinking logically, Labardi's actually been able to pit without getting into traffic and come out ahead of all of the GTEs. Lewis Gallon is coming up onto the back of the GT3 cars now. So there is a big chance that Gallon's going to get held up, and that 2.5 second advantage he had will go pretty much right now, as Gallon's now right on the back, of the GTEs and GT3s.
Yeah, Labardi did have a little bit of traffic with Zarjon, who pitted at the same time, but you can definitely see right now Gallon is getting hampered much worse. He has Martin Silvassi, who has had damage for the entire race, so Gallon does the wise thing, pulls into the pits, get away from that traffic. And Labardi had a bit of traffic too, so it'll be interesting to see if he did close any kind of a gap to Gallon, but it does look like Gallon did get held up pretty substantially.
Smith and Dance both stay out in that class. Donald right on the back of Sanderson now after that move from Volscian to get out of the way and into the pits, which probably wasn't a bad ploy for him as well, considering he stuck in behind Sanderson for quite a while, so he would have saved a lot of fuel.
Oh, Gallon had a huge lead coming out of the pits. He had even gained time on Labardi, but leaving the pit exit into turn 1, cold tyres from sitting stationary in the pit box for about 20 seconds. He's locked up and run wide, almost spun the Corvette prototype. So he's still leading this race, but that was almost a very costly error.
Uppercut Price Racing replay of it. We'll get a bit of a better angle of it. Just as you said, just a lazy spin there, or almost spin. Lucky to save it there. Go back live with McDonald chasing down Sanderson. But yeah, 5 second lead he's now got over Labardi. That's huge.
Yeah, big gain from Gallon, so hopefully he has an underfielded car and he's all good to go. So yeah, but Labardi did get held up quite badly in quite a slow section of track with Zarjon, who did pit at the same time as him, so that hurt Labardi a lot, but still plenty to play for in the final part of this race, because we have seen Gallon make a few errors whilst out in a comfortable lead before, sliding the car through turn 15 again. We still can't write out any headlines.
Braden Swain's got a bit of pressure on him now from Guy Leach and Paul Mansell. Of course, Leach and Mansell teammates, so they're not fighting amongst themselves. They're just putting pressure on Swain ahead. He's in his rear vision mirror and sees two Valentino Rossi inspired liveries behind him. Yeah, headlights ablaze as we approach the halfway point of this race too.
Yeah, Baden Swain will probably have the heart racing with those two cars behind him. He'll probably want a doctor, but not the doctor behind him, and definitely not two of them.
Oh, well
So
done, well done.
he'll definitely be wanting to run away from those two cars behind him, but he's not out of touch of the other two GTEs in front of him either, with McDonald and Sanderson just about a second up the road. See if any of these guys pit on this lap.
Yep, Leach. Leach is the one that's jumped out of that cycle. Interesting, Sanderson doing on average around about mid 44s. The rest of those guys behind in that pack, all of those 5 other cars, all doing 43s or 44 flats. So they're all quicker than Sanderson, who is holding up the field for sure.
Yeah, Sanderson, a bit of a cork in the bottle at the moment. So when he makes this pit stop, it'll be interesting to see how the other cars react, or if they react before Sanderson. So Sanderson definitely got a bit of pressure happening at the moment. Just a bit of a non-story at the moment. Tony Baird continuing to close the gap on Zachary Hanlon, down to 1.3 seconds out front. So that's another battle we do need to keep one eye out on. But Sanderson has all the pressure on him behind him right now, with McDonald, who has shown so much pace tonight, continuing to attack and heading towards Oak Tree Corner, continues to close the gap meter by meter.
Clint Smith now in the pits, so only got Cameron Dance left to pit in at the DP class. We've still got about 8 or 9 of the cars in GTE to pit, and half the field has pitted in P3. Some great battles in the GTE class tonight with Sanderson, McDonald, Volsian, Leach, Swain, Mansell, all those guys there, all those 6, all potentially could end up on the podium.
Yeah, it's a bit of a lottery at the moment as to who wants to finish on the podium. And right now, any one of them could get that spot. But right now, Baden Swan is taking the spot in the pit lane. And he's going to make his pit stop and relinquish his positions to the cars behind him. But out front, we still, of this pack, we still have to keep an eye on Sanderson and McDonald, as McDonald continues to close on brakes into turn 1. He looks so much stronger than the other cars there.
Wayne actually missed his hitbox too, so that will hurt him. He'll lose out time to both Leach and Mansell in this pit stop cycle. Interesting, saw Ivan Volsian hit to get out of that pack between Sanderson and McDonald. Come out with about the same gap back to Leach as Sanderson did Leach beforehand. So if that's anything to go by, Volsian could end up jumping.
Yeah, and that's with McDonald and Sanderson running at a much lower pace, and with Voloshin in a bit of clearer at the moment too.
Got a car spinning. It's Cameron Dance, and also was it John Peasnick? Turn 1.
So your 2 class leaders at this current point in time. Oh, it looks like that was just Cam Dance on his own.
Yep.
And Peasnick just have... Oh, there might have been a bit of netcode in that, actually.
Yeah, a little bit of netcode contact, and Peasnick's done a good job to actually avoid a big one in the end.
Tony Baird dives into the pits, and that's quite important, because whilst all that was happening with Dance and Peasnick, he was actually within within a second of Zachary Hanlon, so that gap had closed down dramatically. So we do have to keep an eye out on him, because that could close down very, very quickly if Zachary Hanlon does not respond on this next lap. And Hanlon's actually getting caught behind Georgi Zajon, so he's going to get compromised on this lap as he rides the back of the bumper of the Mercedes AMG through that slow section of track, flashing his headlights the ERT way, and he could be hurt really, really badly here.
Yeah, that's going to be very, very painful. Interesting Leach. I said about Baden Swain, how he missed his pit box. He had a 10-second longer cycle through the pit stop, through the pits. His pit stop time, the same time as pretty much everyone else, but he's 10 seconds longer cycling through the lane, and that's giving him a 10-second gap to Guy Leach ahead of him now. So big loss there.
Zachary Hanlon around. Race leader GTE has spun the car at Oak Tree.
Really turned into a horrible lap for Hanlon.
So Hanlon still needs to the pit. He's only coming down the long back straight now. And Tony Baird's almost done the exact same thing.
Wow.
Tony Baird sideways into Oak Tree and just caught it. Hanlon definitely lost more time in his spin, but Baird almost did the exact same thing and threw away what will now be his class lead.
Sort of cut price racing replay of that with Hanlon. We'll get one of Baird as well, because this has been changing. We could see the guys that have been battling for that podium spot now right up towards the front of the field.
Hanlon pits, which means Mark McDonald, who has got past Wayne Sanderson, will take over the race lead. So that's another thing that's happened. It was a bit of a slow start to this race, but it's kicking off like there's no tomorrow right now.
We've got 16.5 minutes left in this race as well. Just noticing Paul Mansell's been a big winner out of the pit stop cycles too. He's come out ahead of Volcian and his teammate Leach.
Baird on the brakes into turn 1. Zachary Hanlon still stationary in his pit box.
I think Hanlon's got a penalty as well because he stopped for 21 seconds. He's dropped all the way back behind Leach. He's not going to be far away from Swain coming up at him.
I was saying that I'd be very tempted to race at Imola next week, but after what's happened to all the ERT cars tonight, I'm not sure I really want to anymore. This has been a nightmare.
Not a night to remember for your teammates.
Why did you drag me up here? This is torture.
I think it's probably be better here than being on your own team channel, wouldn't it?
Oh, probably would be, but in GTE right now, race leader Mark McDonald, he's gone through so much tonight, still yet to make a pit stop in that class, with Wayne Sanderson also yet to make a pit stop, but he's not looking half bad now as Zachary Hanlon is continuing to struggle with Tony Baird a long way up the road now, so that's a net loss of about half a minute there for Hanlon.
Yeah, it's been a huge loss there for Hanlon. McDonald's probably going to slot in just ahead of Mansell, so just behind Baird, around about third or second position, I should say. Sanderson comes in the pits now. There's only 2 cars left in the race, left to pit. Got Putra and McDonald, the only cars left to make their pit stops.
Oh, McDonald, who's been out for so long in this race, just dipping 2 wheels into the grass mid-corner at turn 1, so he knows he has to push and he's using every inch of road he can, but he's just hurting himself a little bit. But effective race leader, Tony Baird, currently in second, and if all goes to plan, he's going to have a huge race lead.
Currently got about 15 seconds over Paul Mansell next, who's got a lot of pressure on behind him. Have a look at this angry pack.
We've seen this all race, these GTE cars in a big pack, and we have 4 of them now, as I believe that's Paul Mansell there, sliding the Ferrari quite a lot as he comes out of the pits. So he's under a lot of pressure from Voloshin, Sanderson, and Leach. So we have a doctor at the front and back of the field, and they'll be hoping to work together, trying to get past these next few cars, because there's a really good position on the podium potentially if they can make it to the front of this field.
Yes, so this is for second and third. Second, third, fourth, and fifth in class, these guys. Effective, and we'll expect Mark McDonald to come out maybe just ahead of this pack or right in the middle of it, which will make it really interesting. McDonald now, I'm sure he'll come into the pits this time around. Yep,
and there we go. So this is definitely going to be the story to watch right now, is where does he rejoin in all this? Because there is Tony Baird, who's going to definitely resume the race lead, but there's an angry pack with Sanderson, Mansell, Voloshin, and so many more, all waiting to greet McDonald when he comes out of his pit box.
Speaking of another angry pack, have a look at second and third in GT3. Late Neck, John Peasnick. Neck's now back ahead of Peasnick. We saw a move done before the pit stops. After the pit stops are done, Neck is now back ahead.
I think that might have something to do with the incident we saw between Peasnick and Labardi, I believe it was. Oh, no, Cam Dance, sorry.
Yeah, Dance.
So there we go, but Interestingly, Mark McDonald ahead of Paul Mansell and behind with Mansell and Voloshin. Voloshin locking the rears up like there's no tomorrow, and we have Sanderson and Leach going side by side into the slow section of corners. Sanderson's going to win that fight ahead of Leach, but that little battle pack is now split into two, but no less angry.
I think it will stay in 2x2 for a little bit before they'll rejoin back into intense battle. This is for 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th in GTE class. The other really important battle is 2nd and 3rd in GT3, but we'll stay with this GTE battle for a little bit longer. Watching Leach right on the tail of Sanderson.
Onto the very difficult Oak Tree corner. You have to be careful not to get your outside tyres onto the grass there, as that's the optimal line, but if you take a bit too much, you can end up putting yourself in the wall very quickly. Both master it perfectly, and Sanderson looks like he won't be under too much threat from Leach into this next section of corners, but with 11, almost 12 minutes left in this race, he is by no means safe.
Lotion right on the back, almost contact between he and Mansell coming up through roller coaster. That was close.
Also, we have our GT3 battle spread out quite considerably, and I'm not sure what's happened there, because that was very, very close at one point, and now it's out to about half a second between each car.
It's stretched out a little bit more than it was last lap. You can see Peasnick in the background there, struggling for grip. Anderson and Leach closing up in regards to their gap time as well once again.
So now that big pack of GTE cars now making their way through the S's. Very hard to follow a car through here because of all the aero wash you do get, but Guy Leach not having any issues there as he ranges onto the back of Wayne Sanderson and closes that gap up by a few tenths now through the fast left-hander, which is maximum commitment. And he's definitely looking quite racy now, making up a lot of time on this lap. He did fall back on the previous lap, but he's making amends now. You see Sanderson weaving to get Leach out of that slipstream, but Leach follows suit. And he does have an opportunity approaching, because you can see in the back of that camera shot, hopefully, Luis Paulo Gallen is beginning to get onto the back of these cars, and that's going to provide a lot of opportunities for these fighting GTEs.
Watching it. Cup Price Racing League, we just saw Cameron Dance have a bit of a self-spin at turn 1, just ran two wheels off into the grass, but we are back live once again. That gap between 4th and 5th has definitely spread quite a lot.
Yeah, it has.
Got nothing for Voloshin and Mansell.
As we see Mansell locking the inside tyre of Voloshin, just having a little think about it into turn 1. Definitely not close enough. But I'm just going to keep a close eye on Leach and Sanderson as they have Luis Paulo Gallen coming through, seeing how this affects the gap between the two. This could potentially provide an opportunity for Guy Leach, or it could also be the end of this fight for him. So it's very important where he lets Gallen through. It could potentially be into the S's, and if he can get it before the S's, get Gallen past, and Gallen is stuck behind Sanderson into the S's, then that could provide an opportunity, and that's exactly what's happened. So Gallen should be able to carry a lot more speed, but all depends on where Gallen can get past Sanderson, if that provides an opportunity or not.
He could actually hold up Sanderson, excuse me, depending on where he gets past, but I think it'll be down the straight, so it won't actually hurt Sanderson. This will help Sanderson rather than hinder this pass by our overall race leader, Luis Gallen.
Sometimes it works for you, sometimes it works against you, so unfortunate for Leach, but he's got plenty of pace. He did look quite racy, so we'll see if he can range back into the back of Sanderson. But we do have one more fight to watch as Gallen. He might be 7 seconds up the road from Labardi, but he doesn't mind kicking the rear tyres out a little bit, as Zachary Hanlon is actually retired from this race. So That's a hat trick of ERT cars out. What has happened there for the ERT driver? Lots of damage to the rear wing I'm seeing, but oh, there's actually quite a decent
Oh,
incident we've missed there.
something's happened to
Oh,
Gallon. Gallon's just given up the race lead. Something's happened to Luis Paulo Gallon. After he's passed those cars through roller coaster, something's happened to him because he's given up the race lead to Carlo Labate.
Two wheels in the grass on the exit, and he actually noses into the guardrail quite hard, so he's in second, not far behind Labate, but there could be big damage to that Corvette prototype there.
Off in and into the fence at Hogpen. Almost contact between I'm fairly sure that was Leach. Go back live. They got to do all that work all over again. 7 seconds that he had as a lead. Now gone. Back into P2. 7 minutes on the clock, so 5 laps left.
I'm just hearing from my teammate that unfortunately for Zach Hanlon, his wheel broke, which is why he spun a bit earlier in the race, so that's a shame for him. But right now we have to keep our eyes on Luis Paulo Gallon, who almost noses his car into the tyre walls. He's taking that much curb through Oak Tree in the slipstream of Labate. Is closing up quite quick, so whatever damage he might have to that TTR Hybrid Racing Simulations Corvette, it doesn't seem to be hurting him all that much.
Battle between Mansell and Voloshin still going on, but not as close as this battle for the outright lead, which has come out of nowhere.
And it's about to get interesting too, because this battle for the overall race lead is about to go through the battle for Mansell and Voloshin as well, just a little bit up the road from these guys. They should get into that battle on this lap, so we talked about before that sometimes traffic works for you and it works against you. Well, now it's Gallon that has to hope that it works for him.
Big dive from Labate, and he's made a mistake. And Voloshin's off the track as well. Gallon's now stuck behind Sanderson and can't get through. Sanderson, oh, contact!
Oh, they're both off!
Wow.
When it rains, it pours, and for Luis Paulo Gallon, so many times this season, a dominant display has just fallen apart from him, sometimes by no fault of his own, and that's a nightmare for him. It was looking also comfortable, and unfortunately for him now, he's a long way away from Labate, and that could be race done for him.
Seeing Voloshin running wide, he was trying to get a pass done around the outside on Mansell. And accident here between Luis Gallon. That's a little bit strange between Gallon.
Big moment for Sanderson through the high-speed left-hander before Oak Tree loops the Ferrari and manages not to hit anything, but is losing a bunch of spots and continues to as he now rejoins the track. He lost about 3 spots there and lucky to get away without damage.
Wow. What an end to this race. It's all of a sudden become a battle's brewing that we weren't expecting. Have a look at Voloshin and Leach. Got 4 laps to go.
We saw Voloshin, who was very, very quick before, managed to break away from the rest of the GTEs, but now he has to hope that after that mistake in a turn 1 where he would have flat spotted a tyre, overheated it all, he still has some kind of pace to get away from Leach, who has shown fantastic pace here tonight as well. So it's this field in the last 10 minutes has really flipped itself on its head.
What a race this has turned into. But you're amazed at how this race has ended up panning out. We've got 3 laps left in the race. Labate now leads by 10 seconds or thereabouts over Luis Gallon, then Clint Smith, Cameron Dance in the in the DP field. GT is Tony Baird, Mark McDonald, Paul Mansell, and Ivan Voloshin. But that isn't final at 4. Well, got Marcian, Eck, Peisnick, and Sullivan, the top 4 in GT3. That class is all but settled at the moment, but Donald now got Labate just behind him as he's made a mistake at Oak Tree. He's run wide at the exit and he's going to lose a bit more time.
Yeah, that's not great news for Labate. Probably feeling the pressure a little bit. Only 3 minutes left, race lead. He's comfortable, doesn't need to make any mistakes, and unfortunately that looks to be when he is making mistakes. So he just needs to keep his head down, not think about it too much, and just put in all the laps that he has done so many times throughout this week so far, and he should be able to get a great result. But Luis Gallen, with his never say never attitude, will be fighting all he can to still make up some time and hope for a mistake from Labate.
2 laps to go when he crosses the line. We've got 2 minutes and 50 seconds on the clock, so definitely 2 more laps. What a race this has been.
As Aaron Wilton in the chat says, IMSA always delivers, and it really does. This series has always produced a fantastic race. I'm not sure we've had a single boring one.
We definitely haven't. We might have had a couple of boring patches, but we haven't had boring races for sure. IMSA has been one of the most enjoyable series we've ever broadcast, so well done to all the drivers for putting on a show for us each and every week. At the moment, we still have 2 cars in GTE on the lead lap. Now, I don't think that's happened in any race we've broadcast this season.
No, probably not, and that's a good showing of how chaotic this race has been, that, you know, even a GTE can potentially stay on the lead lap, and same goes with the GTE and GT3. We even have some GT3s effectively on the road ahead of some GTE cars, such as Christopher Norton, who's had a bit of a rough night in the Ford GTE. But yeah, this race has really mixed things up.
Absolute awesome race. We've got 2 laps to go. Labate coming down the back straight up to roller coaster for the second to last time. We've got just over a minute left on the clock, so the white flag will come out this time around. Labate comes up to lap Mark McDonald, so McDonald now 1 lap down. Tony Baird, the only driver left on the lead lap GT classes. Labate will come across the line one last time around this track here tonight, Thursday night IMSA. Oh, big mistake. Another mistake for Labate. He's just got to get it home now. But the pressure is starting to get to him here. He can see the checkered flag. Got to finish this lap.
Yep, to finish first you must finish, and he doesn't have to do anything stupid. Misses another apex there, definitely feeling the nerves, but he shouldn't feel any nerves. Luis Gallen's still stuck in traffic behind, so he really does just need to keep his head down. He can not even overlap this Mercedes in front of him. He can just stay behind if he really needs to, do whatever he has to just to keep calm, and he'll be able to bring this one in first place. Same goes for Tony Baird, who is our only GTE car on the lead lap, which is a fantastic display. He's well out in front there, and same goes for Martin Skreispack, who we haven't talked much about because it's just been that dominant of a display from him.
I think we even had him on the screen tonight. Been doing a great job. He'll have one more lap around, but he's got an almost 5-second lead over Blake Neck. He's been doing a very, very good job once again in the class. Not as much action in the 3 class with a little smaller field. I can't believe how much the DPs have put on a show for us tonight, considering how few cars we've had. The clock has hit 0 though. Labate comes down roller coaster and into hog pen for the final time. As long as he gets through this corner okay, he will pick up the win. Very, very hard fought and potentially, in a way, lucky win for Labate. But either way, a great drive, kept it out of trouble. Up the win. And round 11 for Thursday night IMSA.
Luis Gallen going to come across the line in second. That's going to be a rough one for him to take. He almost had it all wrapped up with a pretty bow on top, but unfortunately it has not paid out for him. So now we're just going to wait for our other 2 race leaders, who are both halfway around the track. So they're on victory laps right now, but a fantastic display by so many of these guys.
Great drive from a lot of the field. Well done, McGrath. Marcian on screen now. Yeah, been very, very dominant once again in P3. Pick up the win by around about 4 seconds by the time he gets there. As long as he does get there. Don't want to do it too early. Where's the chance of that happening? But Tony Baird has officially won GT race regardless of what happens, because now his official race lead is 1 full lap.
I believe we might have saw that in at Interlagos as well by one of the classes where they overlapped the entire field.
Yep.
Which was pretty crazy.
I think they were still... They weren't on the lead lap though, but well done to Marcian. Great drive once again, as we said. Sorry, Bo. I just cut you off again.
No, all good. as Marcin Skryspak comes across the line to win at VIR in the GT3 class, flashing his headlights, which is always an extra tenth a lap, but that's a fantastic display from him. Dominated the class ahead of Blake Neck, who holds on to second, ahead of Nick, who did have a bit of issues mid-race. And that's his GT3 class pretty much done.
Yep, and well done to Tony Baird. Picks up the win in GTE and maintains the lead lap of the race too. So it's like I just said about the drivers ending up different laps in front of GT, but I think the whole field was at least lapped once. But tonight, for the first time, not everyone lapped in GT. As we run through the results in the DP class, Labate from Gallon, Smith, and Dance at a smaller field in that class tonight. Wow, what a race that was! GTE, we've got Baird and McDonald, Mansell, Voloshin, Leach, Swain, Sanderson, Putra, Norton, Bassi, all DFing. Here you go for it, mate. Go for it. I'm just hogging here.
Oh, good. In GT3's, Marcin Skryspak takes the victory ahead of Blake Neck and John Nick, who rounds off the podium with Ryan O'Sullivan and Josie Jarjon completing the very small but very entertaining GT3 field.
Another awesome night of racing here at Vets Online here for Thursday Night IMSA. Our next broadcast will be Sunday night, the big one. We're off to Sonoma for the V8 Supercar Online Premier Series and the EMR Super Cup. 250 kilometres of racing in the main event. Sport categories, the Super Cup, and also the second split racing. Coverage starts from 5:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Then Monday night we'll be back to Sonoma once again for the official Monday night V8 Supercar Series presented by Aussie Driver Search. Bo, thank you very much for your help once again.
Always a pleasure. Can't wait for Imola next week. It's going to be a cracker.
Yep, round out the season in this series next week. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.